He is an ordained Centers for Spiritual Living minister and serves as the founding minister and the spiritual director of the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, which is a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. He brings his years of being a professional educator, visual artist, performer, ASL interpreter, author, and lover of comics and films to all areas of his life and his ministry. He is a frequently sought-after guest minister, speaker at various churches, centers, and events. For him, ministry extends beyond the church and center. He facilitates workshops related to radical self-care, living with purpose, LGBTQ empowerment, exploring and expressing creativity, and more. He is both the co-lead for his local, sorry, I really did read this before. He is both the co-lead for his local Moms Demand Action and the chapter's interfaith lead and a participant in the Survivor Fellowship. When he is not teaching, speaking, writing, creating, performing, etc., he loves spending time with his family, which includes harassing his amazing grandkids. Sounds like a grandparent. And I can say I have personally really thoroughly enjoyed Dr. Raymond Anderson's daily guides. He's in the Science of Mind on occasion, and I know I really thoroughly enjoy his readings. So please welcome. It may take a second to come through, but he will be here momentarily. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Woo!
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
We can see you too.
So, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you very much, CSL Concordia, for the invitation. It is an honor and a pleasure to be with you all. And if you're ready to be a little uncomfortable, let's stretch.
Yeah.
So today, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Discomfort is the least of our concerns. Now, any of us know that if you want to be more flexible, you have to stretch. And sometimes stretching can be a little painful, a little uncomfortable. So today, let's talk about this idea of discomfort being an inherent part of our human experience. And that discomfort can, doesn't always, but it can generate the potential for personal growth, evolution, learning, cognitive flexibility, emotional flexibility, motivation, resilience, and all kinds of stuff. And it gives us the ability to adapt to life, to navigate and move through. But it only does this if and when we choose to address this thing, this discomfort, rather than avoiding it. So our invitation is to develop strategies to be able to cope with, to be able to regulate, to be able to embrace what it means to be a catalyst for life-affirming change. So if that's something we are all ready to do, then let's ask the question, in what ways do I feel or experience discomfort in any of these areas? Physical, emotional, psychological, financial, like in any of these areas. What does it mean for me to feel or experience discomfort? And when I do, what do I tend to do? Because we know that there are those who feel the discomfort. You know, you go to the gym, you get a personal trainer, and as soon as it's difficult, as soon as it's uncomfortable, we stop going. As soon as the class or whatever is challenging, we stop learning. We stop attending. As soon as the relationship is we tend to avoid. So if we're going to get present with this idea, then we have to ask, what makes me uncomfortable? And what do I tend to do when I feel uncomfortable? Now, we can overcome the troubles and difficulties that we have allowed. We're going to come back to that for a second. The difficulties that we have allowed to enter our lives when we remember that love is that creating and sustaining presence within all. God loves, moves, gives, and exists in me. As I eliminate anger and resentment, the divine nature flows freely through me, in me, and as me. And yet, we must also, as part of being uncomfortable, ask, when we see atrocities that have occurred, how was the suffering experienced because of such things as slavery, racial apartheid, Jim Crow, etc.? How were these things allowed or permitted to occur? Because the only way we can create a world that works for all is by truly addressing the consciousness. That's the only way we can collectively. So keep in mind, discomfort truly is the least of our concerns. Marianne Williamson says, how often it seems easier to resist the call of a greater becoming, remaining within the dark cocoon of a self that has settled for good enough. I choose not to remain as good today, but rather to answer the call to greatness. You do realize that that call to greatness is yours as well. All of us are called to greatness because all of us are incarnations of the divine. Now the thing is, the quote-unquote call is often resisted because we lack the awareness of that which is actually for our highest and best. Breathe. Many of us are walking around and we don't really know what is actually for our highest and best. And I'm going to actually stop sharing this. I want to talk directly to you for a moment. Pause and take that in for a moment. What it means that we don't know what is actually for our highest and best. Why would we not know? Because we have been conditioned and indoctrinated by the collective consciousness that says, if you don't have this amount of money, if you don't weigh this particular thing, you don't fit in this particular size, you don't live on this particular side of the railroad tracks, you don't have a degree or letters behind your name, or whatever it is, then you're not good enough. And that you must keep your nose to the grindstone and work and work and work and work just to stay alive. Not even to truly thrive, but just to make ends meet. We've been indoctrinated by a false dogma of not good enough. And the only way we truly are going to create a world that works for all is by doing the practice that tells you that you are good enough right now. If nothing else in your life changes, just you being a divine incarnation of the universe says you are good enough. Now that doesn't mean, for example, if anyone cooks and you, well, that's pretty good. It doesn't mean you won't add a little bit of cinnamon or a little bit of curry or a little bit of whatever to spice it up. You can add, but in and of your own divine incarnation, you right now are divine. Right now, you are a spiritually magnificent being. Right now. And the moment we step into that, as uncomfortable as that can be, then we are more readily available to everything that happens in the world and in our lives that gives us the capacity to transform, transcend, transmute, transmogrify, evolve, etc. So that individually and collectively, we truly are creating a world that works for all by creating a life that works, by creating relationships that work, by creating a community that works, by creating a neighborhood that works, a city that works, a state that works, a region that works, a continent that works, and on and on and on. Because the work we do individually, great and good, but if Denise makes a delicious meal and Denise doesn't share it with me and I'm hungry, what good does it matter that Denise made this delicious meal if not to feed others? Same thing for all of us. We are all here as divine incarnations of the One. How do we live into that so that we are truly transforming the world? There's a book called Immunity to Change, How to Overcome It and Unlock the Potential in Yourself and in your organization. And in this book, they mentioned that there was a study done where doctors, cardiologists, tell their patients that if they don't change their habits, they will die. And only 1 in 7 patients actually listen and change their habit. Now, what does that say to us? That desire and motivation alone are not enough. Having the intention alone is not enough. Simply visioning is not enough. There must be an active and conscious change. Because literally, it is a matter of life and death. So, as uncomfortable as that is, are we willing to do what is ours to do? To change? As Dr. Holmes says, change is the law of human experience, for only God is permanent. The infinite mind, the thing itself, is forever conceiving new ideas, because that's what it does, open at the top. Ever-expanding consciousness. It is forever conceiving new ideas. And the infinite law is forever producing new forms, new conditions, new effects. And the instant that I think a new thought, a new form begins to appear. Now, it's not as simple as just having a new thought. All of the pillars of our mental equivalent must be aligned. Our thinking, the manner in which we communicate, our emotions and our feelings, and our actions. When the new thought is aligned with all 4 of those pillars, then a new form begins to take form, begins to manifest, begins to be the experience. So change is inevitable. And the only constant in life is change. But our question is, because change in and of itself can either be life-affirming or life-denying. I don't use positive and negative. That's my thing. Because positive and negative, as you see in the yin-yang, the negative is the female, the feminine, the dark, and it's not bad. So I use life-affirming, which most people refer to as positive, and non-life-affirming or life-denying, which most people refer to as negative. So when we're talking about change, the question is the change life-affirming or life-denying? To give you an example, there was a time when the indigenous Americans here on Turtle Island lived freely, tended the land, and then a certain group of individuals came and took the land by force. That was change. There was this gentleman, oh, dare I call him a gentleman, there was this person in Germany who at one point changed things in Germany and took it down a very dark and heinous direction. He changed the course of Germany, and in so doing, changed the lives of many, thousands upon thousands of people. The Holocaust was change. But is it life-affirming change? Of course not. So change in and of itself is simply what it is. Our invitation is to ensure that we are making more and more and more and more life-affirming change in our own individual lives and collectively. Now, the thing is, we are invited to step outside of our comfort zone. And we are invited to do so in a way where we can't go back. We can't go back. Remember when COVID began to take effect and many of us were secluded and isolated and we're going through a variety of things. Now, a lot of people are like, we can't wait till things go back to normal. There is no going back. Evolution does not go backwards. Life-affirming change does not go backwards. So we are invited to step so far out of, so far forward in our evolutionary process that we cannot go back. And there's a quote. It's anonymous. It says, step so far outside of your comfort zone that you forget to go back. And I do a Reverend Ray remix and say, step so far out of your comfort zone that you move the planetary axis of consciousness. And as a result, racism, sexism, ableism, homomnesia, transmesia, political corruption, toxic capitalism, warfare, and more are eradicated and made extinct. Now, I know many of us may think, well, I can't do that. You are the divine. You are spirit. You are source. You are the universe. You are God incarnating itself as you. And as Dr. Holmes said, whatever is true about God is true about you. Breathe. So the moment you say, I can't, I'm not powerful enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not wealthy enough, I'm not something enough, what you are actually doing is denying your divinity. So rather than denying your divinity and saying, I can't because I'm not enough, breathe. Breathe into the space that says, while I may not be a millionaire with money, I am a billionaire of consciousness. I am a trillionaire of love. And in so, being that abundant presence of love and compassion and truth and principle, how we show up changes the planet. So when the comfort zone terrifies us with such things as, but there are risks, and there are obstacles, and there are challenges, and there are fears, and more. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my! We are able to recognize and say, but if we want a world that works for all, and I am here, and I am here by divine appointment, then there is something for me to contribute. Otherwise, the universe would not have shown up as me. So the invitation is to say, how do I show up as my highest and best in terms of health and well-being, in terms of joy and love and passion and creativity? And so rather than saying, I can't sing, I'm not good enough for, I could never be a practitioner because, let that go and say, while I may not be a licensed practitioner, because I am the very embodiment of the divine, I am practicing this thing that is God. I am practicing this thing called science of mind and spirit, and in that it makes me a practitioner, licensed or not. I am practicing what it it means to be the embodiment of love. Whatever is true about God is true about you. I am practicing being the embodiment of spiritual principle, wisdom, freedom, equity, justice, nurturing, infinite imagination. I am the very living embodiment of that. Breathe. Because I know it makes a lot of us a little uncomfortable to now recognize our greatness. And I want us to be mindful of, someone said, I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. What I'm telling you is that it's going to be worth it. And I want us to bring to mind such folks, because right now, it's still Black History Month. Bring to mind such folks as Harriet Tubman, and we say, I'm not telling you that it's going to be easy. I'm telling you it's going to be worth it. Escaping slavery for Harriet Tubman was not easy, but it was worth it, especially since the Underground Railroad freed many other enslaved. I'm not telling you that it's going to be easy, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Bayard Rustin, Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, James Baldwin. I'm not telling you that it's going to be easy. I'm telling you it's going to be worth it. Ray, I'm not telling you it's going to be easy to show up in this world where there is war, where there is corruption, where there is violence, where there are school shootings. I'm not telling you it's going to be easy to transform and evolve beyond that. But I'm telling you that when you do the work, when you practice principle, when you show up, it's going to be worth it. Not just for you individually, because a world that works for all, it's going to be worth it for the entire planet. The entire ecosystem, not just the people, but the animals, the plants, the coral reefs, the clean air, clean water. It's going to be worth it for all that God is and how God shows up. So our invitation is, how do we pause and get very real about what's going on in our own individual lives? Because, see, there is a tendency to engage in old new thought, whereby we deny. How dare I tell someone that when I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2022, that there were moments of anxiety or stress? How dare I tell someone that? For them to say back to me, well, what's in your consciousness? Why did you manifest the cancer? What? How dare you even go there to accuse me of old new thoughts? Because it denies the fact that there are many other things that affect how we show up and what's going on in our lives. So our invitation is to get very real about what's going on. What am I feeling? What is mine to do? How do I do it? In a way where I am being a beneficial presence to every person that I meet, everywhere that I go, to such a degree that the very scent of my aura becomes a healing presence to others. In the same way that we know the story, how Jesus is walking through the crowd and the woman grabs hold of his garment, the hem of his garment, and she is healed. And he recognizes, I feel the power moving through me, and do you realize that you have that same power as well? That the very presence of your life, you don't have to say a word, just the way you walk through life is a healing presence when we live from that space. When we are moving through and breaking down all of the domestication, as Don Miguel Ruiz would call it, how we've been domesticated through culture, society, etc., to believe whatever. Breaking that down, anchoring in the truth, so that we are truly able to face the discomfort, evolve, transform, do whatever it is we need to do in order to be our highest and best individually and inspire the collective to do so as well. So if I were to ask you, in terms of the human anatomy, what is most important? Your skeletal system, your muscular system, your digestive system, your respiratory system, your circulatory system, your nervous system. Which one is most important? Because in order for the body, in order for this thing that we call our physical form to function the way it is, we need all of these pieces. We need all of these systems. And physicians recognize the entirety is important. Well, as metaphysicians, are we doing the same thing to recognize the totality of what's important? Our emotions and how our consciousness affects our finances, our thoughts, and the ways we talk about money, the ways we talk about relationships, the ways we talk about the unhoused, and all of it is part of our practice. And we are invited to specifically go to those places that are uncomfortable in order to stretch. Because, the caterpillar goes into the cocoon and it liquefies itself. It turns into goop. Literally, it turns into goo in order to the use of its imaginal cells to then reemerge in this new form. Now, I don't know about you, but just the thought of me melting, what comes to mind is a big wish. Focus. I'm back. And melting is like, wow, wait, what? That's a lot. And yes, we are invited to melt away the old in order to be the very demonstration of ever-evolving consciousness. Whatever is true about God is true about you. And Dr. Holmes also says that the only God any of us would truly intimately know is the one that we embody. God is not out there, over there, somewhere. There is a God that looks down upon you. No, God is showing up into and as you right now. So as we prepare to move into the third month of this new year with a grand rising, let us do so. One, by remembering and honoring the lives and the legacies of people who have endured things that many of us can't even imagine. And let us honor their lives and the legacies in even more powerful ways by choosing to do the transformative work and practicing what we are called to do. See, because the science of mind and spirit, when applied effectively, gives us the capacity to change the very foundation of the collective consciousness. And in so doing, we create a world that truly works for all. But in order to do so, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Uncomfortable with our changing thoughts, uncomfortable with changing language, uncomfortable with the feelings and emotions and the triggering and the dysregulation and all that stuff, and move through it and navigate it nonetheless. align ourselves with principle, consciously and actively practice the science of mind and spirit. And remember what Dr. Holmes said at the Sermon by the Sea when he said, I am not religious science. You are. Mm-hmm. I am simply someone who puts something together. I don't even take myself seriously, but I take what I am doing very seriously. You are religious science. You, our ministers, our practitioners, our laity, you are religious science. And when you show me people who know what religious science is, practice it, and live it as a way of life, then I will live to see, in essence, he didn't say these words, but I will live to see a world that truly does work for all. And that is our invitation, to be uncomfortable enough to do the work and practice the practice and change the planet. Namaste, much love.